This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 233 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is studying abroad. I am full of regret that I didn't get the chance to study abroad. Well, I mean, not regret really, it just didn't happen. I don't even remember when I was at university really ever, even kind of knowing that such a thing existed perhaps. I don't know if it was the degree I was doing or my university, I don't know, but it wasn't really on my radar. And now looking back and seeing all of the options available today, I think, that would have been pretty amazing. So I guess to make up for that, I hope that my son will definitely know about the options for studying abroad. I have to make a confession. I may have made it in an episode already. I can't quite remember, but I spend a couple of months every semester teaching freelancing and consulting students at a university here in Perth at Murdoch. And every time I have to buy parking tickets, a couple of times a semester, I have to go to student services. And while I'm waiting, you always have to take a ticket and wait. The kind of the spot where you stand to wait is in front of the huge wall of brochures for study abroad programs. And they're arranged by country, and I find them utterly fascinating. And I always bring home a couple and leave them on the dining room table, make sure they're a conversation point with my son. And I'm pretty confident that he definitely knows my expectations. So, I mean, it'll be up to him. We've still got a few years to go, but I do love the idea of spending part of your university or college time studying in another country. It's such a depth of experience. I know I've read research that shows at that age and in those circumstances, it's often months that you spend in another country and you're with people of your own age, but from the local country. And there's just so many massive benefits, much, much more than what you would actually be learning at university. So I think it's a great program. So today I have three guests who have done some study abroad, and I am looking forward to sharing their stories with you. So first up, I have Jennifer Johnston, and although we're about the same vintage, she was able to access a study abroad program while she was at uni, and it sounded like it was pretty life-changing.
Study abroad, if anyone has the opportunity to do it, and I know so many more people are looking into it. When I did it, I was 20, turning 21. And it wasn't a huge program at the university that I was at, but it was definitely something that was encouraged. And I ended up going to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Mm-hmm. Everyone confuses it because there is another University of Massachusetts in Boston.
Right.
But, yeah, it's about 90 minutes from Boston driving. And that was my first overseas trip at 20.
Wow,
very
cool.
different to my boys that we've just been talking about because, they've been overseas at 10. But that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? Sometimes you get families that travel more regularly, and my parents mostly did trips to places in Queensland, and we did a few road trips and things like that. But, once I got to Boston and had a few days there and then went to the university and then did trips, round to different places, that was it. That was the travel bug.
I bet,
That's when it started. It's just an opportunity to meet more people, and, I'm still friendly, with 3 or 4 of my university friends, and on LinkedIn I get updates from the University of Massachusetts, which just makes me laugh.
Oh, gorgeous.
They post photos and things like that. And then my oldest son, I think we just talked about that briefly before, ended up going to Japan for a semester at the end of 2019 and then into 2020, so he just made it before,
Good timing.
COVID kind of stopped people from travelling internationally. And, it had the same effect on him. He's just totally addicted with travel. The difference was he went to a place where they don't speak English, and I didn't have to learn a new language, but he's come away and he's conversant in Japanese now.
Fabulous. Yeah, what a great opportunity.
Yes. He arrived and he was a bit nervous, going, I can't remember any of my high school Japanese, Mum. And I said, well, give yourself time, and it is daunting. Because conversations are flowing around you, and, it's Tokyo and English is spoken, but there are places where no English is spoken, as you would know. And, I'm just so supportive of anyone who considers doing that, and everyone that I've spoken to comes back and says, yep, it just changes you. You become more confident, and it's just an opportunity for you. And you did this too, didn't you?
No, I didn't study abroad. So
I thought you studied abroad, sorry.
No, I didn't. Otherwise, I would have talked about this, I think, earlier. It's the first episode I'm going to have about it. But our school took us on a month-long trip to Germany when I was in year 10. So I had that kind of school trip experience. But when I was at uni, I don't know, it wasn't really very... I didn't even really come across the opportunity. So I don't know if it was like the nature of the area I was studying, or my uni didn't have good connections or whatever, but it just wasn't something that even kind of crossed my mind. And I kind of, I think I imagine that one of the reasons it's so fulfilling is because you've kind of got you've got a structure of something you're going for a reason, but then that the structure of that makes sure that you get to meet lots of other people, and I don't know, it's kind of like a guided immersion in a way, and it's like the kind of perfect storm, and you're usually just the right age to be venturing out more. And
because I know a few people that have done Rotary exchanges too, so the year after they finish high school, and then they go overseas, which is a bit different to a university exchange, but such an opportunity. So they basically go and repeat, the equivalent of year 12 for us, but it's, a bit different depending on, where they go to.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's as we know, travel opens up your eyes, makes you appreciate so many more things, and allows you to connect in different ways with people, because it just gives you conversation starters because of the experiences that you have. So I'm just all for any opportunities, like that.
The fact that Jen's son ended up choosing to study abroad gives me hope that my brainwashing method, let's say, might work on my son as well. And certainly his experience in Japan would have been incredible. I can tell that for sure. Now, my next guest today is Tinsley Rios, and Tinsley had an experience studying abroad in Peru.
I wanted to talk about my experience. I studied abroad in Peru, and it was my first time in South America.
Wow, cool.
I actually believe it was my first time. I truly say all the time that even though I've been to other countries, before going to Peru, I've been to other countries, but it was mainly in the Caribbean. But I never really got the experience. Let me just say, I never really got the culture shock until I went to Peru.
Right. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
So that experience alone, it was about a 2-week study abroad trip. It was a short-term trip. I was a little nervous to go for a long term. However, I wish I would have went for longer. But going on that trip really opened me up to different experiences. So my study abroad program was centered around teaching English to younger children there. And I really enjoyed it because in English there, we were volunteering teaching English, and we were also volunteering giving back to the communities that were based in Cusco, Peru. So it was an exciting experience because we got to go to Machu Picchu, of course, because that's in Cusco. But we also got to teach English to underprivileged children in the communities there, in the indigenous communities there.
Oh, wow. That would have been interesting.
Yes, it was such an interesting experience, and really a great way to just open up your mind to, the way other people live in different parts of the world. I mean, it was just really interesting to see how the children and their families lived off of like $1 a day.
Yeah.
And having to go to school and, wear the same clothes for the same week. They even made their shoes out of rubber tire. It was an interesting experience. It was hard for anyone. It was hard to see, but in that case, it really motivated me to want to give back. I wanted to help them. And we visited 3 different schools. And after that, I told myself, every single place that I go and I travel to, I want to find some way to give back.
Yeah. I think a lot more people are thinking about travel in that way these days, which I think is amazing. Sometimes it's tricky to figure out what is the best or, most appropriate and effective way to give back. That's the thing I always struggle with. But it's so good to hear that, more and more people are actually traveling, with that intention, which I think is fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. Just trying to volunteer, whether it's missionary or even help at some of the different local supermarkets, just trying to find different ways that you can give back. And even if you're just a tourist, that's a great way of giving back, helping out small businesses or helping out the economy in their country.
Tinsley's experience proves that even in a relatively short time, just a couple of weeks of a study abroad program, you can definitely learn a lot and get really inspired. Now, my final guest today is Patti Buff. You might remember Patti talking about her student exchange experience. Crazy coincidence in that she was able to come from the States to here in Perth on a year-long student exchange. But for this episode, she told me about her second exchange, which she did during her college years as a study abroad program.
I did a second exchange when I was at university.
Right.
My cousin and I, he grew up in a different part of the country, but we're basically the same age. He's like 10 days older than I am. Right. And so we're pretty close. And so we were studying at different universities. And so he called me up one summer and he's like, I want to go on an exchange program with you. I'm like, sure. Don't have to
I'm
twist
up for that.
my arm.
Yeah. I don't need to ask any more questions. Just yes.
Sign me up. And so what we did was we looked at the programs that both of our schools would recognize. And so we could get full credit. And it turned out to be a program in Dublin, Ireland. Which is fantastic because both of us are Irish. Both of us are half Irish.
Right.
And so we spent a semester in Dublin. And that was also fantastic. So what we ended up doing is we met in New York and we flew from New York to London first. And then we toured around England and Scotland. We got as far north as Aberdeen, Scotland, and did a nice little whiskey tour there.
It's important. Cultural experience. You're underneath American drinking age, but not British.
Exactly. Yeah. We were legal in England.
So you made the most of that.
Awesome. We definitely did. Couple of pub crawls in London and got to experience the closing time pub experience in London, couple of fights breaking out around us because, everybody's so drunk, and it was a great experience. And we went up to the Lake Country
beautiful.
In northern England because both of us were English majors. And so we had spent a lot of time reading Wordsworth and all of the great literature that came out was inspired by the Lake Country.
Yeah, perfect.
And so we did that as well. And then we took a ferry over to Dublin and we joined our program. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. So it was, of course, before the Irish Tiger, so Dublin at this point in time was still quite poor.
Right.
And so it was really, so while I was there, the movie The Commitments was released, which of course was this great, huge cultural event for the Irish and Dubliners in particular, because they saw themselves on screen and the music was fantastic. And it was a brilliant experience being there for that.
How cool.
But Dublin itself was still very much under a recession. And there were empty lots with garbage strewn, in downtown area. And so it was still, very economically depressed. But the people there were lovely. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. I go there as Patti Coughlin, and they're like, I'm not even going to ask. It's like, obviously, we know all about you. You're an American. You grew up hearing about Ireland, and that's why you're here. And I'm like, right in one. And so it was, but no, it was a great experience. And like I said, it was an English major. And so I took a class on the Irish writers, who are fantastic, of course. And then this was also during the time of the Irish Troubles were still going on.
Oh, of course.
And
yes.
so you had, the IRA were still, or the provisional IRA were still fairly active in Northern Ireland. And we did end up taking a trip there to Belfast and to Derry, and we met up with we went to a school that was the first school in Northern Ireland to integrate the Protestants and the Catholics together. Wow. And so we went to this, I think it was a public school. I don't think it was a private school.
Okay.
And just to hear about the experiences of these children that were going to school and, how they were trying to get past these cultural differences that they had and these ideological differences that they had. And we went up from Belfast, we went to the King's Causeway, which is right on the very top of Northern Ireland.
I've only seen pictures, but it looks amazing.
Oh, it was really amazing. Yeah. It was really amazing. It was nice. And then we drove over to Derry, and it was an experience because, of course, Belfast was occupied in some parts. And so my cousin and I and other friends, we were walking around kind of the outskirts of the walls that separate the Catholic community from the Protestant community.
Amazing.
And of course, these were spray painted, with, these, slogans and pictures of, IRA militants. And, I saw the Bobby Sands Memorial that had been painted in his honor. I turned the corner and there are the British Army patrol right in front of me.
Wow. It's confronting.
Yeah. And I mean, as an Irish Catholic from, the United States, this to me was just kind of an experience. I wouldn't say it was a good experience, but it was an experience. And I turned on my heel and I'm like, I'm out of here. This isn't my fight. This isn't, something that I need to get involved with. And a British man that I had met here and worked with here in Germany, it turns out that he was stationed in Belfast at the same time that I was there.
Wow.
And so, he, of course, has this very different perspective.
I bet. Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
What may have been the similar encounter. And, and so it was really interesting having my eyes opened by his experience there and what I very briefly experienced. And that was really cool. But after we left and I was back in the United States, one of the pubs that I had visited in Belfast was bombed.
Oh, wow.
By the IRA.
Ugh.
It was a treasure. It was known as the Crown. And it was, one of the most beautiful pubs that I had ever been to in my entire life. They had like these separate rooms where you could kind of, so you could be cut off from everybody and just stained glass and these really, dark wood paneling, dark wood tables, and had just been around forever. But, the name, the Crown, just really,
it became a target. Yeah. Oh, that's tragic, isn't it? Oh,
it was tragic.
It sounds like Patti's experiences doing her study abroad program in Ireland were full, not just of really interesting study, but also some fabulous side trips. Patti also told me a story about a trip they took to the Aran Islands and to Galway, which I've got saved to feature in a future episode because that's a part of the world I particularly love. I also have a big chunk of Irish ancestry, so I would love to get back there again. Maybe one day I need to study there too. That would be amazing. Anyway, I definitely am not going to be a university student again anytime soon, perhaps in my retirement years. I don't know. I'm definitely too busy. But I love thinking and dreaming about study abroad experiences because I think they're very, very valuable and at such a pivotal time in life. And I would heartily encourage you, if you're young and have the chance to do it, or if you're a student and have the chance to do it, do it. And if you're a parent and have the chance to encourage your student children someday to go and study abroad, I think you can learn way more from a study abroad program than just staying at home in your regular college or university. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to episode 233 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast, all about studying abroad. Massive thank you to my guests. First up, Jennifer Johnston from Travel Bug Within. You can find Jen's blog at travelbugwithin.com.au. And a special shout out to Jen because she's been a very long-term, very loyal and really delightful supporter of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. She's always sharing it with people or messaging me about it, and just I really appreciate it, Jen. So thank you. After Jen, I chatted with Tinsley, and you can find Tinsley's site at travelwithtinsley.com. And lastly, I had another good chat with Patti Buff, and Patti's a writer. You can find out more about her work at pattibuff.wordpress.com. Don't forget to come and join us chatting in the Thoughtful Travellers group. I'd especially like to hear if you have had your own study abroad experience and learn something more about it from you, because I have to live vicariously on this one. So search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook, or there's a link in the show notes. And the show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/233. That's it for today, and as always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.